Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Out of Spec Guide. I've assembled friends and colleagues, Francie and Coleton, here from the Out of Spec team tonight because we've got some exciting news.
We sure do. I'm super psyched to talk about this. I think this has been long awaited in the EV space, so happy that you can walk us all through it, Max.
Absolutely. And Francie, we're going to talk about the personal news you have with this announcement as well. But Colton, you're also an owner of this. We should talk about what we're talking about. It's the new Tesla Model 3. You own the current one, right?
Yep. So I actually own a 3 performance and a 3 long range. We've long been awaiting the Highland or refresh. I hope we start calling it. And yeah, super excited for this to finally see it here in the States. Orders are now available.
Apps, yeah, it's really exciting. We've seen this right in Europe and abroad, and Kyle's driven it. There'll be much more details, Francie, on the Out of Spec podcast you host, a kind of in-depth discussion tonight. I just wanted to talk about spending some time on the order page. Tesla has just kind of unveiled it for the US. Let's talk about what's new and what isn't so new, because a lot of stuff is carryover from the old Model 3, which isn't actually that bad of a thing.
Okay, yeah. I'm interested to see how we can explain it best to what has changed and what hasn't, and why this is also like why people are so excited about it. Because Tesla, I feel like everyone has loved the Model 3. Like you said, Colton, you have two of these. So for a refresh on it, which I'm surprised you don't like the name Highland. It's pretty exciting, I think, in general for anyone who's liked this kind of EV and is excited to see the Tesla take a new, fresh approach to it in the US now. I know that they did it in other countries and regions already.
Yep, there were rumors people were following that they were, doing pre-production in their Fremont plant, and now it's here. I think the really important thing to get across here is like this is the Project Highland that was rumored. It's a new Model 3. It's got a facelift. There's some nice new features. Yet when it comes to like the drivetrain, the battery, those components, it's all the same. And for the US, for us, really relevantly, what that means is the tax credit status, which changed this year to no longer have the Model 3 be eligible, is the same. So this does not get the federal tax incentive unless you lease one.
Interesting. And I know Colton kind of advocated against leasing a Tesla on one of the out of spec podcasts, but I think it could work for some people sometimes, as long as you read the fine print.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Max and I were actually just talking about this off camera earlier. Max and I are both in interesting buying places with the his Pulsar 2, our ID4, and yeah, I mean, values are crazy right now. So I think leasing is going to be a huge thing, especially with that $7,500 incentive that Tesla is offering and other EVs out there. So Max, why don't you take us through a little bit of the pricing if you can? Because I think it is unchanged from what we've seen on rear wheel drive and all wheel drive variants here.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Just going through some of the features on the site, people can look at the Out of Spec podcast and also the other coverage for all the things new on Model 3. But like you said, Colton, pricing is interesting here. It's a happy surprise, I think. It's the same.
Yep, the same. And I believe in other parts of the world, it was actually a little bit of a price bump when this originally came out, like when it was in China. So the 3 refresh or Highland was made out of the Shanghai factory. Of course, it seems to be these are coming out of Fremont now. But yeah, I mean, the pricing, I'm kind of surprised that we didn't see a bump up in price. Lots of new little features you're getting on the Model 3, a totally new interior that seems really, really interesting. But yeah, Max, just kind of roll through here and give some insights on what we're looking at as far as range, pricing, and everything else in between.
Yeah, well, I think the elephant in the room that we haven't discussed yet is Colton, one of the Model 3s you have, that performance, the new one you got. I know you love it. There is no currently announced Model 3 performance with this refresh, so you can't buy one now. That's new.
Yes, and you cannot even from looking at this basically order sheet on here where you can go through select your options. No performance at all, not even the old one. I did just quickly checked before we hopped on here. It doesn't seem like inventory pricing on previous gen Model 3s have taken a huge dive yet. I do expect to probably see that once these are really rolled out and they need to get rid of some back stock of inventory.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen in the next few days. Tesla's site still seems to be getting used to all the new things when it comes to those tax incentives we mentioned earlier. Tesla says you could still get it on the Model 3 because up until, I guess, earlier today, you could get it on a Model 3 Performance, but there is no Model 3 Performance anymore. So there's no tax incentive when you're buying or financing. Though, like we mentioned, the lease loophole is a way to get around that if that's an option you're interested in. And Francie, I want to get your perspective on this because I know you've been kind of shopping around for EVs, looking at them, and this one has kind of been up high on your list. So, what are your thoughts now that we've got this new one with the new looks, so a nicer interior, a lot of stuff going on? What are you thinking?
I'm very excited. I feel like this is the perfect option for me. I mean, there's a lot of perfect options, but in a lot of ways, budget wise, a lot more friendly than other EVs that I've considered. It has less space than maybe would be ideal for me, but I think the fact that it has I've watched Kyle's Highland when he went and drove it, and I was like, well, this is a pretty rave review, and I trust Kyle's expertise there. So I was excited from the beginning for this to come over to the US. And then as I've considered what's on the option, what fits my budget, what fits my needs, what has decent range. And of course, I thought it would be cool to really experience like CCS charging and what, a lot of people experience and which is not really great. So I can have that relationship with that experience. It is just so tempting just to have the supercharger network. And with everything going next, I feel like this is an easy sell for me.
Yeah, you're buying into the right infrastructure right off the bat, and of course, Tesla's great software and over-the-air updates. I myself, all of us sound like Tesla shills maybe at the moment. I don't own a Tesla. Like Francie, you were saying you were looking at getting non-Tesla options. Coleton, you have the Volkswagen ID4. None of us are like Tesla fanboys or fangirls here, but it is just unreal how good the value proposition of Model 3 has stayed and how exciting it remains. Now, I do want to just make it clear here because it's the same battery and the design has some slight tweaks. If you're hoping for like range increases, charging performance to be better, that's not the case. That's not what this Model 3 is about. It's much more about kind of just refinement, the interior lights, the nicer soundproofing, I think a more comfortable suspension that Kyle was mentioning, those kinds of niceties. But Francie or Coleton, I just want to hear your thoughts on what is the market going to look like now? Because you mentioned Coleton, right? The inventory discounts haven't yet come. What is this going to do to someone who maybe just bought a Model 3 at the end of last year because they wanted to take advantage of the tax credit before it got phased out for the rear wheel drive or such and such? Like, what's going to happen now to all those existing Model 3s?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see values drop, of course. I was actually in that boat of I purchased a Model 3 Performance at the end of the year, took, I was able to take advantage of about $12,500 in tax credits, which I will realize in April of 24 of this particular year. So
Thank you, Colorado.
yeah, exactly. I mean, the $5,000 Colorado incentive on top of the federal is just, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. I'd been searching for a performance. Am I going to regret waiting? I don't know. I need to drive Highland and see what it's all about. Kyle even mentioned, he goes, this is the best car in the world. And yes, that's an extreme statement, but I think when really get down to the nitty gritty, they have massively improved the interior, which I think a lot of folks are going to be impressed by. I'm anxious to see build quality wise if this is going to be similar to Shanghai. Fremont has not been known to make the best cars in the world. I actually posted today on Twitter that, my Model 3, 3,000 miles rolling down the road, I'm hearing vibrations and I'm like, this thing sounds like a dump truck. So Kyle was very, very rave on the interior updates, the suspension, ride comfort. And Max, I do want to say, I believe we did get a slight efficiency bump on these particular cars. I don't remember what it was, around 5%, I want to say, somewhere in there, just with new styling, new efficient wheels and things like that Tesla has optimized a little bit. Of course, on the EPA cycles, we'll kind of see how real world what that actually looks like. But yeah, I'm excited for Highland. I mean, it's a good, I think mid-cycle refresh, even though, gosh, how long has it been since the original Model 3 design. Not a ton has changed.
Yeah, it's really just minor tweaks. I think Tesla originally said when they launched this in Europe, 12% improvement, which was maybe a bit optimistic down to the aerodynamic improvements with the styling. Again, same battery and motors going on here, slightly different wheel design, maybe slightly more efficient tires. I think it's got some like new Michelin rubber going on, but it's all just tweaks. I can't say you could go off the EPA range figures because it seems like they've actually reworked it a bit. So rear wheel
Yep.
drive is like the exact same number as it was earlier, 272. Long range is 341, which is marginally more, but I think the EPA cycles and range testing are actually getting some changes this year. So I'm not sure if people should really be looking too finely into that. I think really in the real world, from everything we've seen, it seems like a wash. But of course, 70-mile-per-hour highway test out of spec stuff will have to happen on this so we can know
Of
for
course.
sure.
Of course, for sure.
But yeah, you've got that going on. By the way, I should mention tax credit and incentives could change over the course of this year. Right now, it's really a technicality, which is why this car doesn't get it because of where the battery is produced. If they get a plant going to make the batteries for this vehicle in the US or move production the way they did for Model Y, where that has qualifying batteries and gets the full tax credit when you buy it, maybe that could happen for Model 3 this year. As of now, though, with them launching this, it hasn't. But final thoughts on just, the value proposition, what's going on with this new refreshed Model 3 from both of you. I guess let's start with Francie and then hear from Coleton.
Definitely. I think that, they kept some things the same, which I'm not surprised by, right? Like you said, Max, and I think it'll take like a lot of new innovation to totally like rebuild the Model 3 or their EVs in general. But as we've seen, like nothing is really coming out with like incredible range or incredible efficiency. I feel like they are taking what works and then enhancing things that they could. And it's been a long time. They've had a ton of success with this EV. And I think a lot of people have been really pleasantly, not even probably surprised, but it's been a nice reception of what they have changed. So I think it's awesome. I think if you did buy another Model 3 at the end of last year, hopefully you just knew what you were doing. Like you wanted one, like there was some other benefit to you, and that was explained to you. Because I think if you have any kind of insight into the market, you do know that the value of these EVs change, which I think is an appealing part of leasing them. So yeah, I'm excited. I really think this is a great option for me and a lot of other people out there. Coleton, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think value proposition here is kind of hard to beat. I mean, just the improvements from what I've heard from Kyle, off camera talks and things, and watching his reviews, of course, on it. I think the interior is the biggest upgrade. I mean, yes, it got a minor refresh on the exterior, new front bumpers, new headlights, new taillights, the whole gamut there. I think this is a very good buy for a lot of folks. I don't care, about Tesla stocks and things like that. That's not our job here. But I do think a lot of companies, other manufacturers struggle to even meet the benchmark of Model 3. And with that getting a, pretty solid upgrade, I would say, yeah, I think it's going to push that even farther. And I think the wait lists on these are going to be quite a bit. I'll be curious to see how, Fremont totally ramps the new vehicles coming out. I know Francie and I were texting before this. She's like, do I need to order right now? And I think, yeah, if you want one of these, you're going to have to jump on one. Yeah, I'm excited to get behind the wheel of one of these. I'm, again, still shocked that they haven't changed the price on it. And as far as, drivetrain and things that they didn't change, I'm not quite surprised. I don't think most people's issue with the Model 3 is necessarily, drivetrain components, battery pack size, all-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive. I mean, they've got that pretty nailed down now. I think a lot of the issues were build quality, fit and finish, and things like that, which we're hoping to see this delivers on. So yeah, super excited for it. And Max, I'm curious, what do you think about this as a non-Tesla owner? Does this intrigue you at all? Or yeah?
I think it really just lifts the benchmark that this car already was. Them adding ventilated seats and those nice features to what already was a great value proposition is really compelling. Like you were saying, Francie, this may be not the vehicle class you envisioned, maybe a bit smaller than you wanted because it's a sedan. It doesn't have the hatchback. They didn't really change those parts of it. And yet, I think this car still works for so many people. We also should mention, Ryan on the team has a recent Model 3 that he bought in the middle of last year, and he's really loving it. So it's kind of good, I guess, for existing owners. That's like, they didn't get obsoleted with this new one. And yet, if you are in the position like Francie is in and you've been kind of waiting, this is a great opportunity to get into one, particularly if you're leasing now with that tax incentive being applied towards it. Also, I should mention delivery notices, like you were saying, Coleton, I can see these getting back ordered. At the moment, for me on my screen, Tesla's site is saying delivery by the end of the month through February at some point. So if you're watching this right now and you're interested, well, get your name on that, get that $250, I think it is, non-refundable deposit down, and put your interest in, because I think these are going to be popular.
Totally agree. Up on it.
Yeah, I'm curious to
Absolutely.
see what Francie's going to go for. I think we'll dive more into that on the Out of Spec podcast and talk her through options list, rear wheel drive versus all wheel drive. But yeah, I'm pumped for it. I think it's a great step for these cheaper EVs. Yes, these are still expensive, if you will. And Francie's doing disco lights over here, but yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, lots to celebrate, and I look forward to seeing Francie, presumably ordering hers on the Out of Spec podcast live as is about to happen. So thank you both of you for joining me tonight. Always, never a dull moment in the world of Tesla.
Never, never, never. Yeah. Thank you, Max, for having us on and for covering this. I think this will be really helpful for people to just really clear up what's different, what's not, why is it cool, and help them make the decision if this was what they were waiting for.
Yep. See you in the next one. Bye.